Hey there, my name is Bernadette Smith. I'm a keynote speaker and writer. My pronouns are she and her. Welcome to 5 Things in 15 Minutes, my weekly show where I still bring good vibes to DEI. That is good vibes to diversity, equity, and inclusion with a little dash of corporate social responsibility. What I found is there are lots of news stories about what's going wrong in the world and lots of negative data. But there are also a lot of things going right. That's what I like to focus on. I search for stories that we can be inspired by and learn from. My hope is to inspire you to experiment with some of these actions and policies to help you build a more inclusive world. In this week's episode, I'm joined by Julian Newman, he, him, founder and CEO of FutureCast, Girl Dad, and movie enthusiast. This week, our conversation is about standing ovations in leotards, women making spy history, Fridays off for Dubai government workers, and more. Let's get started. Julian, welcome to the show.
Well, hey, thank you so much, Bernadette. It is exciting to be with you. I'm excited to be on the show and to have this conversation with you in this time where emphasizing what is happening right in the world is so very important.
Yes, because it is rough out there right now, and we need to come together and find the light.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
can you tell folks a little bit about your work?
Well, I'm a girl. One of my favorite, most important jobs is I'm a girl dad. I have four amazing daughters, and I'm super duper proud of them. And I actually think that my me being their dad is maybe a better leader and a better human and a better guy. I have a leadership development firm called Cultural Creative, and our goal is to help organizations create atmospheres where every person can achieve the highest level of their human potential.
Mm.
I have a foundation called FutureCast, which is a platform for leaders that want to shape the future and create a hopeful future with an authentic or accurate eye on the present. You know, it's not a
Mm.
utopia or Pollyanna, but it's like, hey, listen, like you're saying, it's easy to kind of devolve into a dystopian mindset, but let's build a future fully understanding the reality in which we're existing within, but let's do something that feels hopeful and let's feels helpful and create space for all of us. And then lastly, I um I wrote a book called Beautiful Together that I'm super excited about, and I think that it feels timely and it feels needed in a time where, as you said, um, we really need it. Let's hold on to hope.
Yeah, I want to get to the book in a second, but first, I'm
Mhm.
curious. What does a hopeful future for you look like while staying kind of grounded in the reality of what's going on?
Well, I think so much of my life and my leadership is connected to, the world that I want my daughters to grow up in. I want my daughters to grow up in a world where they can be their best without limitation.
Mm.
They can say, "Hey, listen, I want to do this. I want to be this," and there's no limitation because, hey, I'm a woman. I'm a girl, and as a girl dad, at least if you do it well, it makes you you have a built-in desire to be a champion for women.
Mm.
And so for me, that's a huge part of what I want. A hopeful future is space for them. A
Mm.
hopeful future is for us to transcend the systems of minimizing a limitation that we've inherited.
Mm.
And so none of us created these things, but we inherit all of it.
Right.
And so I think that is both a bad thing and a good thing. It's a bad thing because wow, we've inherited this negative legacy. I think the positive is because we had inherited and we didn't invent it, that it gives us the opportunity to take responsibility without blame
Mm.
and say, okay, listen, I didn't create this. I inherited this. Okay, hey, I benefit from this. For example, me being a man. Okay,
Mhm.
so I didn't create the reality that gave me access because I'm a guy. But you
Mhm.
know what? I can take responsibility with the access that's been given to me. And
Mhm.
so for me, a hopeful future combines those components.
Mm. I love that. I think it is really important for us to be mindful of our unearned advantages, right? So that we
Hmm.
can use them to lift others up and to do better without blame.
Hmm.
And I do think right now, unfortunately, we are in kind of a blame game world. Okay, well, you know what? In this week's Five Things newsletter, I wrote a little bit about this and sort of my own awakening. A few years ago, up until a few years ago, I didn't really know the full story of Juneteenth. I mean, I had heard of it, but I hadn't really fully understood it. And I say that in kind of an embarrassing way. I mean, I've been doing inclusion work for almost 2 decades when I learned this. But the reality is that I was sort of staying in my gay lane. You know, I was choosing to be around people who I felt safe and comfortable with. And it wasn't intentional, but it definitely kept me separate. And so, one of the things I talk about, and I talk about that in my keynotes, but one of the things I say is inclusion requires intention. And during this time right now, I can feel, you know, when business is slow and there's so much tension in the world, I kind of feel that pull to stay back in my lane. But I know that's not going to serve anyone, right? And so I think intentionality has to keep being
Hmm.
part of this. And I know that's what your book is about. You know, it's about building bridges. So can you talk a little bit about some of the concepts of bridge building in your book, coming out of our lane?
Well, I love what you're saying. And one thing I'll just say in relation to Juneteenth and the American history in general, we've all been undereducated when it comes to American history.
Mm,
And so it's important for us to be intentional, like you just said, to be able to get off the couch of our cultural comfort zone and to be able to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to learn a new story. I'm going to get outside my bubble. And one of the things I talk about is the 90-10 principle. And so the 90-10 principle is if I'm operating in the numerical 90% of people that are like me, then there's a lot of the world that I'm missing.
mm,
So I have to get out of the numerical 90 and to be able to get into the 10 because the 10 knows things about the 90 that the 90 doesn't know about the 10.
mm,
And so I have to stretch myself. I have to um, you know put my life and my leadership in action.
mm,
And so one of the concepts in Beautiful Together is that all of us have something, none of us have everything. When we put all of our somethings together, we have everything when we're beautiful together. So I have something to contribute, you have something to contribute, the next person has something to contribute. Now, we don't have the totality of all the contributions within ourselves, but all of us have everything if we combine our contributions together.
yeah.
And so that allows us to be in relationship with other people. It forces us to be able to come face to face with our own blind spots because I can't
Mhm.
see everything, I can't know everything, I don't understand everything. So what it creates is, I think, is vulnerability and authenticity. That's something we talked about, off air. But it's something that's very significant and important if we want to actually create something that feels transformative and hopeful and inspirational and empowering. And so the book is really a field guide to be able to navigate some of the crazy. And at the end of every chapter, it isn't just, okay, here's my opportunity to get new information. And so one of the things I think is important is we actually have to put our knowledge in motion.
Mm,
And so at the end of the chapter, there's a rubric. It's learning, living, leading, legacy. So you and I, when we generally get new information, we sit on that information. So think about how many conferences and books that we've had, or magazines, or pamphlets, or whatever. It's like, oh, this is great information. But I didn't really put that thing into practice because I
mm,
didn't put it in practice. It didn't stick with me.
yep.
And so the new learning that we receive, whether it's, okay, I'm going to get out of my lane and this is what I'm going to do. And people are going to listen to our conversation and go, man, you know what? I agree with that. But the agreement is only one part of it. Agreement learning is a section, but where am I in the next 24, 48 hours going to take that learning and put it into living?
Mm, yes.
So I'm going to go out of my lane and I'm going to go to a different restaurant. I'm going to read a new book. I'm going to watch a documentary. I'm going to make a call to somebody that maybe is a coworker or a colleague that's outside of my lane, and I'm going to say, hey, listen, can we go to coffee? I'm going to ask some questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I've moved it into learning to living. And after I do that for enough, my leadership is impacted by the learning and the living. When my leadership grows in rooted, authentic experiences, now I can leave a different legacy. And when I
Yeah.
leave a different legacy, there's a different world that others inherit that's a positive inheritance that's different than some of the other things that we've talked about.
I love it. I love it. But it doesn't happen by accident. So the intentionality is absolutely key. So, folks, get out of your lane. We need to
Yeah.
come together. We need to be more beautiful together. Great book, Julian. Folks, check out Julian's book, Beautiful Together. And let's move into this week's Good Vibes. All right, the first story this week comes from the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders who are finally getting what they deserve, a 400% raise. So one cheerleader shared that her hourly rate jumped from $15 an hour to over $75, which helps close the gap between athletes and the, quote, entertainment staff who train like pros but have been paid like part-timers. Love this.
You know, it's so funny as I think about this. First of all, when I looked at the numbers, I was shocked. I was
Mm-hmm.
shocked at how low those numbers are, and the fact that we're just trying to create something better now. The 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 cheerleaders for the Cowboys. That's like an iconic piece
Mm-hmm.
of this football franchise.
Right.
And for there to be so woefully underpaid when it's really connected to the overall brand, and you think about the level of the dollars that are coming into the NFL, the Cowboys, through all the different things that Jerry Jones and the rest of the Dallas Cowboy leadership is receiving. I mean, I'm glad that they got the 400%, but I'm thinking, why wasn't it 800%? You know, that was my initial like, okay,
Yeah.
this is better, and that's great, but man, I don't know if it's great enough when I look at everything that is going on in the league. So I'm excited for them,
Mm-hmm.
but I think progress has been made, but still more progress still needs to be made. That was my thoughts on that story.
Well, I'll say, Julian, that's sort of a theme with a lot of these stories is yes and, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But, you know, it's the first cheerleader squad that I've heard of to even get this, right? So if you think
yeah.
about all the other teams who are probably paying that, you know, similar to $15 an hour, I mean, that is hopefully we'll start to see the dominoes fall from this
Yeah,
move.
yeah,
All
for
right,
sure.
the second story this week comes from New Jersey, which has a new law in effect requiring employers with 10 plus employees to disclose salary ranges and benefits for all posted jobs and internal transfer opportunities. So this is, I think, about the 13th or so state to have pay transparency, but it's only one of a few that actually require that both pay and benefits are listed. So this pushes back against vague phrases like competitive pay and great benefits, and especially impacts women, BIPOC folks, and others historically excluded. So take it. I'll take the win.
Transparency is important when it comes to these conversations. You know, it really goes back to what we said about intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if I want to create an atmosphere, an equitable future where everybody has the opportunity, then we got to raise a level of communication and clarity about what is happening. So it's not like that one commercial that says, you know, what is the salary? So, oh, it's competitive. You know, they make fun of what we're talking about here,
Right.
but we have to do a better job if we're going to do a better job.
Yep. Yep, exactly. All right, the third story this week comes from the UK, where for the first time in its 116-year history, MI6, which is Britain's foreign intelligence agency, will be led by a woman. The woman is Blaise Metrowelli, who will take the helm as C. So this is a major crack in the white male stronghold of global intelligence. leadership. Whew. And she is very well qualified.
Well, this is exciting as a person who grew up watching James Bond.
Yeah.
I didn't know until, man, I think I was an adult did I realize that MI6 was something real and it wasn't just in a James Bond. So you talk about getting out of your lane and educating yourself. I had to educate myself in relation to that. I don't know if M in the movies was in charge. I think she was, and so it's really awesome to be able to recognize the gifts and the talents of everyone, and to see a woman helming this very iconic, historical, important organization entity is beautiful to see, because we know that talent is universal, ability is universal, but access to the opportunity to
Mm.
actualize that amazing ability and talent is not there. And so to be able to see this glass ceiling broken is very exciting to me. And again, as a Bond fan, um, it's really cool.
She'll be the first, but not the last.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right. The fourth story this week comes from Chattanooga Gymnastics in Georgia, which may be the only gym in the world to fully integrate athletes across age, gender, and ability. So this gym actually trains Special Olympians, national champions with Down syndrome, and families all on the same team. It became the first U.S. group invited to Germany's Turnfest, performing as part of an international inclusion team and earning the only standing ovation. So I love that this is all integrated, right?
I I heard a quote somewhere that said, "A society or civilization is not judged on how they treat the powerful and the mighty. It's how they serve the most vulnerable." And so when I read this story, it kind of choked me up a little bit, because I just think that, man, those families, those parents, those those athletes are having the opportunity to be included and not shunned or cast aside or put somewhere. Oh, okay, we'll get to you in a moment, but to be dignified as a full member and a participant is powerful and it's beautiful.
Mm.
So very excited about this.
Yeah, and just the word dignity, right? The dignified, right? I think that that's just when we don't have it, it's soul crushing. And so, but it does require a little bit of care and compassion to set folks up with that sense of dignity. So that is a beautiful thing. All right, and the last, and that now I got a little teary. The last story this week comes from Dubai, which starting on July 1st, their public sector will test a bold shift, a 4-day work week. So this is called the Our Flexible Summer program, which allows thousands of government workers to either take Fridays off or work shortened hours. So goal is to boost well-being, balance, and performance. There was a pilot last week that found that 98% of participants reported higher happiness and better performance. I love this is happening around the Gulf region. There's been lots of pilots in Europe, but this is great.
It's so beautiful to see when people are not treated as products or commodities, but
Mm-hmm.
actually valued as people. And that's something that is beautiful about this story. I think it's something we can exercise on our day-to-day lives in terms of, hey, do we look the barista in the eye? Do we go to the cashier, and we actually have a conversation with them? What do we do? And so the intentionality to be able to say, hey, we're going to invest in your well-being, and we're going to give you options, and we're going to give you the opportunity for flexibility, is something that it just feels like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
To create the flexibility as well as the option to have your own autonomy to make the decision that you want to make. I would go so far to say that productivity is going to go through the roof.
Absolutely. I agree. And in other pilots, it has because there's often longer work days and Fridays off, and people are really focused and they get it done. And
Mhm.
it's just good for everyone. It's good for folks, good for caregivers. It's good for um, companies who can have, you know, can set things up a little bit differently and allow that and have better retention. Like it's a great win-win.
Mhm.
All right, well, let's move into
For
this
sure.
week's good vibes to go. I'll share my good vibe to go and then invite you to share your good vibe to
Mhm.
go. My good vibe to go is to laugh a little bit, and you can check out Atsuko Okatsuka's new stand up special, Father, on Hulu. She's hilarious. She is really just great. Check out Atsuko. She's really funny. Julian, what is your good vibe to go?
My good vibe to go is something that a mentor told me years ago, and they said, you don't have to be one to stand with.
Mm,
And what that means is it doesn't have to be your lived experience to stand with somebody else who has a different lived experience. If somebody is in another lane, it doesn't mean that you can't step out of your lane to be able to provide support for them.
mm,
And so that mantra, that point of wisdom has been something that's really shaped my life since I heard it. Hey, I can step out and be authentically me in my lane, who I am, my story, my background, my style,
mm-hmm,
my et cetera, et cetera. And I can be able to stand with somebody else that's a very different experience in me.
mm.
And it's okay. It doesn't make me non it doesn't rob me of my authenticity to be able to stand with somebody who has a different story than me. And it doesn't undermine my support because I
Yeah.
do.
Yes. Good advice. Good advice
Hmm.
indeed. All right. Thanks, Julian. You've been such a great guest. How can folks get in touch with you?
Okay, I'm on all the socials. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all of that. You can have a website, juliansnewman.com, and you can look up my book on Amazon or beautifultogetherbook.com and get your copy.
Love it. All right. Thanks, Julian. And everyone, hope you have a great week. And if you don't already subscribe to the Five Things newsletter, you can subscribe at 5thingsdei.com. Have a great week.